The exhibition we are going to introduce is called 10 Hours by Carol Bove. While spanning two floors of David Werner's gallery in Hong Kong, this exhibition is Bove's fourth presentation with gallery and her first show in Asia. It follows her participation in this year's Venice Biennale, which featured a focused selection of recent work and a two-person exhibition with the artist John Chamberlain, and is currently on view at the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art. Before we begin, let's have a brief introduction of the American artist Carol Bove. Bove was born in Geneva in 1971 and raised in Berkeley, California. Her works combine sculpture and conceptual assemblage and transform disparate materials into arrangements that articulate a minimalist aesthetic while speaking to social history. And her approach is derived from her early formative encounters with public art installation. Both start working with a material still with a purpose, to see how much discontinuity and depth there is in one single material and how many registers can occur. This becomes a project on its own. According to Bove, it's just still, but each element is different and is fighting for dominance. She thinks that not all of her works are beautiful. She demands the viewers to do something different with each work, having a different response to each thing. She wants them to move around and find the spot that makes sense to them. Both expand upon her ongoing series of collage sculptures, compositions of various types of steel back in 2016. These works are characterized by square steel tubing that has been crushed, manipulated, and painted in vibrant color, and variously combined with found pieces of scrap metal and often a smooth, highly polished steel disc. You could see more examples from the fifth floors. Now let's get right into the exhibition. Both try to direct viewers to reconsider space and their relationship to the works on view. Each floor is a distinct perceptual environment, creating an interplay between two formal modes of display. Here on the sixth floor, you could see a controlled environment which featured two discrete spaces. The large-scale sculpture we are looking at right now is called Offenburg Broker Road 2019. The title of which referred to a popular melody from Jack Offenburg's final opera, The Tales of Hoffmann, 1851. Let's listen to a short melody from the original. The shattered steel is reminiscent of Venice's icy canals and the ravenous woman who deceived Hoffmann, while the rusty metal scrap and fiery orange ribbons of steel twist and wrap around each other, reflecting the romantic entanglement between Hoffmann and the courtesan. The scene is depicted by the illustration on the right. The second installation is called The Moon and the Yellow Tree 2019. It is a horizontally oriented work painted in subtly saturated yellows, and whose title is borrowed from Sylvia Plath's eponymous poem. The Moon and the Yellow Tree is a beautifully written poem, and its splendor lies in the fact that Sylvia Plath perceived so many beautiful sights and yet found desolation in each. In summary, the poem is a meditation on these two objects, viewed from Path's bedroom window and what they represent. You can see this piece here is surrounded by large geometric forms, which Bove is referencing the Platonic solids, meaning the three-dimensional symmetrical forms that figured in ancient Greek mathematics and philosophy through 16th century astronomy. In her evocation of the Platonic solids, Bove referenced the works of British artist Helen Chadwick, one of the first female artists to be nominated for the Turner Prize. Bove pays homage to and expand Chadwick's legacy with installation featuring large geometric forms based on the cast Chadwick made of her own body for her exhibition Ego Geometria Sum, which consists of Platonic-like form in the 1980s. The appropriate forms are painted with a uniform flat grade paint, and the same grade is applied to every surface of the two floors gallery, aside from the sculptures themselves. So you might have a question for now. How does Bove make these twisted pieces? Playing with surface texture and pushing the limits of the steel's physicality, Bove continues her exploration of form and process, including floating and crushing steel into more complex composition, and rendering the material with an almost fabric or clay-like superfinish. Both use the method called hydraulic press for bending and massaging these tubes, and then she peels the bends closed using the chain hoist system. Through this process of manipulations, the geometry of the steel becomes very complex, and making the tube seems more like fabric or some softer texture. Let's check out the fifth floor to see more of her works that shows this method.
Moving on to the fifth floor. Here we have 10 hours from Carol Bove. Once again, the artist plays with display and representation of materials in this work, similar to the first work we see upstairs, which is Offenbach by Carol. Two different sections can be observed. One is with this obvious rusty kind of texture. The other is a colorful twisted tube that looks unreal. In the other exhibition room, we have more prominent colored pieces from Bove. She uses an open layout with natural light in the fifth floor of the gallery, which includes a number of vibrantly colored works on pedestals of different heights, creating shifting visual relationships among the works. The pedestals here play an important role in the works. Bove believes that pedestals are philosophical. When we put something up on a pedestal, we are saying that this isn't a real space. This is something else in another dimension. And when we take something off the pedestal, it symbolizes we are bringing it back into reality. Bove wants audience to see her works as a combination of imaginary real objects, but not a normal sculpture inside a gallery space. Like the work we see here, The Hinge. Not only the way the tube stands and bends suggest the work as an object in a non-physical dimension, but the pedestal itself also creates an imaginary space for the work. We can often see Bove intentionally leave evidence of her work's construction process on the surface of the work. For example, the work here is la luz. We could see the obvious conjoined part here. It is a kind of narrative decision. When the parts are welded, it is the instance when two pieces of the same material being melted together along a seam. When parts are bolted together, it is a temporary and reversible connection. Bove also applies manipulations in her use of color to engage perception, experimenting with its illusory effects and possibilities. She thinks that colors can serve as a function, which is the context of what it is placed in relation to the physical world. She intended to approximate a palette that would make sense in a digital context, especially on a screen, like the RGB colors. This work is named Icon, which is in relation to its color of the iconic green color in RGB code, and such color makes the work look unreal in physical world. Bove also made use of the colors that reminds her of outdated printing technique. She played with color combinations that interfere with one another in the same way that color separation printing or screen printing can fail and cause friction between areas and applied colors. To further explain, let's look at the work, Time, Strength, Cash, and Patience. The color of the twisted tube looks smudged, just like a gradient color, and the way the color is applied with the matte finish makes the work hard to read as a normal physical object. Our eyes do not know where to focus on the surface, and the object as a whole becomes immaterial, and so it can sometimes look very digital to our eyes. Bove also likes to have art historical references in her work, as a means to create an evocative palette. The color choice of Phi Y Canis Majoris is inspired by the vibrant and saturated orange-red color in Flowers in Green Vase with Handles, 1905, which is the painting of French symbolist Odilon Redon. The fluorescent orange of the sculpture is very close to the chrysanthemum flower in the painting. After seeing these works, do you find the tubes look unreal because they bend weirdly? And that the works do not behave like the materials they were made with? That's because Bove tried to raise her question towards the qualities of stainless steel in these works. She wondered if stainless steel is in fact hard and strong. She wants to know if there was a gentle and persistent way to act on the material, so that it will behave differently. So basically, Bove treated this project like solving a puzzle. She would raise a question and solve it piece by piece. She also uses illusions, such as the color illusion mentioned earlier, to heighten the process of our cognition. Bove thinks that there is a connection between what we think a thing is and what it is when we feel it. And these two systems of understanding create a dynamic interplay. Understanding could start with an idea, then ends with a feeling, or vice versa.